Hello everyone, my name's Nigel Carmody. Welcome to this member Q&A presented by Mazda here on nmfc.com.au. Three far more important people than me who've just been running through a little bit of a fashion critique of our camera people prior to coming on air. That won't go to air, but their responses will as we get ourselves towards the tail end of season 2023. Brett Ratten, Todd, Viney and Brady, Rawlings, appreciate your time. Obviously a lot to talk through given where we find ourselves in the football calendar, and we've got some great questions here that I think cover a lot of important touch points that our members sort of want to check in on with a few rounds left in the 2023 home and away season. So without further ado, and with a bit to do in preparation for West Coast later in the week, let's rip in. Rats, I'll give you the first one. This is from Matthew. What positives can we take out of the season to date outside of being competitive in several games?
Yeah, it's probably been our first year players that have come in and played some really good football. You've got Sheasel, who could win the Rising Star. Wardlaw, Blake Jury's played. Cooper Harvey's playing at the moment. So just to see their impact, and that's pretty exciting knowing that, you know, we've got next year's draft as well. But there's probably things on a Monday to Friday that you don't see. And the growth of our leadership group and some of the conversations and the feedback we're having in team meetings now is a lot stronger, and it's more to a high-performing team, and I think they're pushing for greater standards, more from each other, and I think we haven't seen that transfer to wins yet, but you'll see it come eventually, and I think we're taking some big steps in that space.
Next question heads your way, Todd. It comes from Bilal. If you look at our list on paper, it's not a 2-win season list. Why are we struggling to convert solid performances into wins?
Well, it's a $1 million question. We believe we should have won more than 2 games, but we are trying to develop a team and a list and a game style that's going to hopefully salute in chasing silverware. So we're trying to introduce a lot of new ideas, a lot of new concepts to a playing group. Continuity is really key to that. So continuity right from pre-season when we didn't have any of our key tall defenders playing or training in Aiden Core, Buckets Mackay and Griffin Logue. They didn't train at all together. And then during the year through the midfield, we've missed out on Simpkin a couple of times with a concussion, a broken hand, LDU. It's had an interrupted year, so we haven't had the consistency. At the same time, we lost, our senior coach. So when you talk about continuity and the ability to keep rehearsing, keep training, keep playing, and executing roles in a new game plan, we haven't got that. So, winning, it's a tough competition. And games will come down to a few things here and there, and we haven't quite nailed a few opportunities that are presented. But as Rat said, the last thing we'll see is the scoreboard ticking over. There's a lot of other good stuff that's happening. We've seen some good growth in like a Bailey Scott. I reckon he's taking his game to another level. And Jaden Stevenson, who's been around for a while, I think he's had a really good year playing in our system and doing some things that maybe not to the eye, but certainly internally has been really positive. So there's really good stuff happening, the leadership stuff. But the last thing we'll see is nailing that game plan under pressure, the game's on the line, and hopefully in the next few weeks we'll see if we get those tight opportunities again. We had another one on the weekend, but we'll start winning those tight games.
Yeah, you mentioned the incremental improvement, and the last thing will be the scoreboard where we've seen basically a goal improvement on both for and against year on year, which is a small movement in the right direction.
I would agree with Todd. When you put a group together, it's about continuity, and with that, you don't use 41 players that we have, and you've got a core group of players that are playing with each other each week, and what comes of that is trust and belief, and the synergy of each group. It's not the whole team. Sometimes it's that back 7 that work together, and the midfield group, and then the collective group is the team, and we haven't had that at all, and that's hopefully something that next year, as a club, we have less injuries and we'll use less players, and then you'll see that connection piece really come together.
Next question, back to you, Rats, comes from Suzanne. Suzanne, thank you for your question. It is, has Clarko given you specific instructions on what he wants to see each week?
Probably not pre-buy, but post-buy, yes. We sort of, before Adelaide caught up, and then each week he's caught up with the coaching group and had a chat about some of the things he'd like to see moving forward. And implementing into our game plan. So we've done that. So each week we haven't gone and put something in each week. We've probably had a couple of things that we've sort of been trying to do for a few weeks, and then okay, if we feel like we're advanced in that space, we'll try something different, or if we don't think we're advanced, we'll just try and nail that for another week or so.
Braids, we'll get to you shortly, I promise. Next one, though, is for Todd, and again, sort of looking at a bit more of the here and now, but into the future as well. This question comes from Divian. Appreciate your question. It's how does the team's fitness compare to the rest of the competition, and how is this measured, and what are we specifically doing to improve it?
Well, no, I think it's always, how long is a bit of string? We think we've got a young developing team in some respects, and then we've got some elder citizens that are getting closer to the end than the start. But I guess in the pre-season we were happy with the work we got into the players. And having said that, there was sort of an allowance to say if we're going to be 5% over with the fitness work that we do, or 5% under, and get the game plan sort of time to educate that, we want to be on the game plan. So, we probably could have squeezed the sponge a little bit more in pre-season, but it was a club decision to say, new coach, new game plan, let's spend a little bit more time educating that. So I think it's fair to say we need to get to another level. But that's, whether it be Will Phillips, who's playing in the midfield, last year missed the whole year with illness. He's coming back in. He did most of the pre-season, but, really 75% intensity. Tom Powell's had his third pre-season. So those guys will get more. Sheasel and Wardlaw will get more. So I think we'll get better in that space. But yeah, we need to get, like a game plan, like everything that we're trying to do in our department, we need to go to another level.
Righto, Braids. Great to have you here at such an important time in the season, and you're out in the rain watching Collingwood and Sandringham in the VFL on Sunday as well. It's a busy time for the recruiting and list management fraternity. We'll start with a question from Daniel, and it is, if Ben Mackay exercises his free agency rights and leaves, what are the plans to replace the full-back position, and what is our approach to the draft in terms of best available talent versus positional need?
Yeah, obviously when you've got a player coming into free agency this year, we always knew we were going to have to scout for that position. Once Griffin Logue went down with his knee, it sort of highlighted that even more, and the need for us to have some more depth and coverage in that position. So we're definitely looking in that space. The thing with our list going into next season, we've currently got 46 players on our list, given the AFL gave us the 2 extra list spots, and we had 2 on inactive list as well. So we've got to get from 46 down to 42, which we've been well aware of all throughout this year. So to bring players in through the draft, to bring players in from other clubs, we're going to have to cut reasonably deep this year with our own list. But we certainly do need to look at that key defensive position. It can be a tough role to scout for when you're not sure what your player's going to do from a free agency point of view. But you need to be as well prepared as possible. And our scouts have been watching all year, and the thing that I've loved about our footy club this year has been the coach's involvement with list management as well, and it's all been on the same page, and being able to speak really freely about who we might be looking at or any list decisions that could occur. So we're definitely looking in that space. From a draft point of view, it really depends where your picks end up as well at the end of the year. Currently we've got pick 2 and 17. I'm tipping that's not where they're going to end up by the time we get to the national draft. So if you're picking up at the real pointy end, it's hard to go past the absolute talent. Clearly when you're picking inside 5, you're going to pick up some future stars. So if that's the case, we'll be looking at bringing in the talent. But we're well aware that we haven't picked very tall over recent seasons as well. So we've certainly got that in mind also.
Is that a salient point to sort of expand on for the fans and members tuning in, that while we're a month out from the end of the home and away season, we're 4 months away from the draft, and there's, so to speak, a lot of water to go under the bridge in regards to the draft and trading, as you reference. Right now it'd sit at 2 and 17 in the first round of the draft, but what that actually ends up looking like on draft night, a lot will change within these 4 walls, but then that's going to be quite significantly impacted by the performance and decisions of 17 other clubs as well.
Yeah, and it all depends what each club wants throughout the trade period or even on the night. So gone are the days where you can sort of start looking at certain picks and who you're going to take months out, because you need to be prepared for every scenario. You might end up trading out a top pick, which is very unlikely for us to do. But there's those opportunities now with live trading on the night as well. So you need to be prepared for all different types of options, and you do what you think's the best thing for the club. And as I've mentioned before, we're so well aligned that no decision will be made purely from the recruiting team. It'll be what's best for our footy club moving forward because we're on the same page.
The backline's a popular topic from Ben Mackay to Griffin Logue, who was mentioned in Brady's response to this. Question comes from Michael. Appreciate your question via the forum. With the injury to Griffin Logue, Rats, I believe we need another big body in the backline. Could someone like Charlie Comben be trialled down back when he returns?
He could. He has the athleticism to maybe do that. But I think what we've seen from Charlie, his competitiveness in the forward line and his ability to crash packs and play as that second ruck. So it's a shame he got injured, and he's one of the players that we're sort of talking about. Hasn't sort of got to see him grow as much this year because of injury, but he's one that could have really blossomed by just playing footy this year, and we missed another opportunity to get another 10, 15 games into him. And what he showed through the year, he didn't get a heap of the ball in some of the games, but he created opportunities for the smalls, didn't allow the opposition to mark the ball. So I think he'll be trialled back as a forward. But as you know, in pre-season, you start to throw ideas around. Clarko will muck around with a few things, and maybe without Griff in the team, we might trial something like that. But I'm tipping he'll go forward.
I think there's some merit in it though. Like he's had a terrible injury run. I think when you're marking the ball as a forward, it's a little bit different to you go down the other way and you can just be you're not as quite as aggressive in the marking contest. And the main thing I think with Charlie will be just to try and get him to get through a whole year of footy and not break something. So maybe going down back, he has a different look at the ball and hopefully it might be a bit safer for him.
Yeah, something we've seen, I suppose, Sava Radaglia do at the Cats this year as well, as he looks to lock down a spot in their team. Another one involving the defenders, and another question for you, Rats. It comes from Kanish. Appreciate your question. Cullen Dawson is one of the few players we have not seen being given a senior game this season. Despite some inconsistent form from our defenders, is he seen as competing with the likes of Mackay, Core, Logue for a spot, or is he competing against the likes of Zeeble, Young or Sheasel?
Now, probably more the big men. Kel put probably a block of about 3 or 4 really good weeks, and early in the year probably struggled a bit, had a couple of injuries, missed some footy as well. But his last month's been exceptional, and his name's been in that match committee conversation. So he's not far from getting a game, and I think his opportunity will come.
Hope you're enjoying our member Q&A here on nmfc.com.au, with thanks, of course, to Mazda. Another question for you, Rats, slightly a little bit further up the ground, but not too far away. Regards, Josh Goda. This comes from Trifon. Appreciate your question. In my opinion, Josh Goda has attributes that are better suited up the ground, be it on a wing or in the middle. Does the coaching staff see it the same way?
I think before this year he'd been used on a wing. He played most of his junior footy as a half-back, and I think he could play maybe around the ball. So it's something to think about, but his speed and power and size could be used in multiple positions. But I suppose as a young man, trying to forge a career and getting himself into the seniors on a regular basis, I think the ability to just nail one position and get it right. But over time, and maybe at 24, 25, I think he'll understand the game more, be really confident in himself, so he'll have the ability to go from one position to another and really not affect him. But I think when you're sort of trying to get that infancy in your career, your early days, just get nail one spot and play. And I think halfback is more comfortable to him, but I think with his attributes, he could play anywhere.
Brady, you did reference this a little bit in your response before, but we'll extend on it here. A question here from Noah. Noah, appreciate your question via nmfc.com.au. Will there be much of a list change at the end of the season with older and out-of-contract players?
Yeah, obviously touched on that before with our need to cut pretty deep, given the need to go from 46 down to 42. But as most people know, we've got some older players, whether it be this year or next year. We're going to have to make some big calls on some careers, which is natural once you get to this stage in their football career. So we've obviously got the draft in the front of our mind. But we also need to keep bringing in some mature talent as well. We've got a pretty good group of 25 and unders that we're pretty confident in, but we need to keep adding to that as well. So not only looking at the draft, looking at positional needs, a lot of players 23, 24, 25 are starting to come up in discussions, and we've been quite proactive there as well to try and improve our list. So we think we can pick at the top end of the draft, and we think we could pick a few from other clubs as well, and hopefully increase the run and a bit of rebound in our game as well.
That's a fine balance to strike, isn't it, for your time at other AFL clubs, with the management of a list that has experienced players who are coming to the end and having enough of that experience around to help bring through some highly rated young talent.
Yeah, I think we've seen numerous examples of, if you cut too deep, what it can look like. We've tried to balance it out. We've given everyone real opportunities to play footy this year and contribute. But yeah, we've got young guys developing. We need to give them opportunities. But if you have too many of them and we become non-competitive and we don't have great communication out in the field, certainly the game becomes a lot harder for those young guys to get their confidence. So the balancing act of what the team balance looks like is something that we talk about every week, and we've tried to do it as best we can. Probably in this later part of the year, you start to think, maybe we're going to need to look at a few more younger guys, see what they can do. But it's a constant battle to get that right mix.
Another question for you, Todd. It comes via Vince. What's the game plan on attracting quality recruits to the club this off-season?
Really it's about creating the right environment. I think you create the right environment, the right culture. It's amazing how word softens out to player managers, and players speak to other players at different clubs about the environment and what we're trying to do. So obviously they're looking at the wins and losses and seeing are we heading in the right direction. So we've just got to keep building the stuff internally, keep building the fabric of the club and what makes us a good place to be. And we'll win more games. That's part of the journey, and things aren't ticking over at the moment, but we'll do that. But we'll target some players that we think that they'll get an opportunity to play, and then down the track, if we're looking at attracting A-grade free agents, I think most free agents over a period of time will go to clubs that think they're in the window to compete. I know when I was at Melbourne, we had a lot of trouble trying to attract high-end talent early days. But by the end, when we're starting to make progression, all of a sudden you get Lever and May that came in and really consolidated that premiership team. But in the lead up to that time, opportunity to get Bernie Vince, who was really good, a Daniel Cross to come in and show good leadership. A Jordan Lewis was really important in the Melbourne transition. So the same will be for us. We're looking at how we can improve our list, and yes, top end talent. Yes, some 23 to 25-year-olds that have been in the system looking for an opportunity, but there might be a player like Shields has been invaluable for this year. It's been really good for our players to be learning off a 3-time premiership player. So there's no one set rule about building your list. We'll look at all opportunities that we think are going to make us better, but there's no doubt, the talent at the top end of the draft and some smart trading is going to be important.
Brady, a question on that sort of theme from Jordan, and he writes, do we intend to be quite active in the free agency and trade period? It looks like we may need to bring some more players in their mid-20s to help the younger brigade, which again is something you referenced in your answer before, but can you expand on that for us a little bit?
Yeah, so just with the free agency, it can be quite difficult, as Todd said, when they're 26, 27, to attract those types, and that's where we need to get to as a club, where we want to be bringing those players in they're going to help us win a flag one day. So we want to get to that stage. We're probably more in the trade space this year, where it's probably a little bit younger than that space. So we've got no doubt we need to keep improving the talent on our list. And through those two avenues, that's what we'll try and do. We've identified areas of the ground that we need extra support in. There's real opportunity for players to come in and maybe take those spots, whether it be from a draft like Harry and George have done, or whether it be from another club like Darcy Tucker last year, Griffin Logue. We'll look to add a few more players from other clubs as well. As a group, we think you need the maturity, as the guys have both said. And I think that helps, no doubt, with our VFL team as well, Nige, that we've had a few lean years over the last 3 or 4 years at both levels. And this year with a bit of added maturity and no doubt some players that play together with more continuity, we've been able to get up in the top 5, top 6 at VFL level, which is terrific for our young guys to develop that way as well. So I think when we talk about some of the positives this year, that's probably a positive as well.
Yeah, well, VFL sitting 10-5, 6th on the ladder with 3 rounds remaining, and as you mentioned, Braids, hopefully a final series to look forward to, which, as we've seen traditionally, has been a good pointer then for AFL senior success over the years. When young players get the closest thing to an AFL senior game is going to be a VFL final, and that experience in cutthroat games. Thomas, appreciate your question. Are we going to apply for an assistance package to the AFL, and will that include priority access to Riley Sanders?
Yes, this is an interesting question. Sometimes I'm in two minds on how to address it. Like, at the end of the day, the AFL are well aware that we've won 11 games in the last 4 years. So when are you looking at that? We haven't had the results that to be competitive. And the AFL is about trying to be competitive and competitive balance and a lot of things we try and do. So I think they're aware of that. But on the other side, there's a big part of me that says assistance package, or whether it's a white knight coming in on a horse like Alistair Clarkson, or if it was Paul Roos to Melbourne, the process we're going to have to undergo as a club is more than assistance packages, priority picks. That's part of the journey, and we'll go down the right avenues. But we need to get all our internal processes right, get a lot of things right to be able to make our march up the ladder, and we'll do that. So that's how I'm divided on that question. Yes, the AFL are aware of where we're at. B, that's not going to be the golden bullet. We have to find more sustainable ways to become a really good team and club. And I think with the personnel we're attracting to the club, from coaching and administration, the stability of the board, we're heading in the right direction. We've got a lot of the foundations and the fundamentals of what we need to do to become a good club. And chase silverware. And so that's what we're really concentrating on. And then the players, the picks, that will all be taken care of. But we've got to get all the fundamentals right from a club point of view.
A couple more questions to come. A question from Riley Tubbs, not Riley Sanders. I'll just ensure that you know that after that last response. This is for you, Braids. Are we likely to look at trading for or drafting a key forward to help out Suv with some height in the forward line? Nick's obviously having a career best season and likely to crack somewhere between 50 and 60 goals.
Yeah, it's always something we look at draft time, no doubt. The key tools that come through, they're quite rare, so I think you'll find that a lot of the key forwards are taken up pretty high. There's one ripper this year, but unfortunately he's tied to Gold Coast, and they got rights to him. So there's not too many that come through each season, so you really need to take them into account when they are there. And after Jed, there's probably not too many others. We've got a young guy who's father-son to the Bulldogs as well, in Jordan Croft. So there's a couple up there, but we won't be able to probably get our hands on. But Rat's touched on it before. Charlie Comben, he's been around for a little while now, but we've got 9 games into him, and we've got high hopes for him. Love to see him get a full season at it and see how he goes.
Yeah, so certainly a couple on the list, and Nick was found at the very, very tail end of a national draft as well, so they are available a bit deeper depending on their composition.
Braden George might be one. I mean, he's not a tall, but as a junior with a really successful junior career, he played as that sort of goal-kicking, big-body forward. So we're looking forward to seeing him get a run next year, and he might be able to. We might be a little bit different. Richmond for a long period of time just had Jack Rewald as the main tool, and they won a couple of premierships without the other big tool. So we might have to look at some other options. But Braden George is exciting.
It'll be exciting to see what Braden can do. He's an absolute talent. He loves kicking a goal. So
what's his nickname?
The sausage. Yeah.
Because he likes kicking sausage rolls.
He could be the most talented out of this year's crop. That's a big call because Sheasel's playing so well, and Wardlaw, we know, is very, very talented. But Braden has got some real strong AFL attributes. Beautiful kick, long, strong, good size,
Powerful.
goes with his own footy. So, to think what he could do next year, and he hasn't even played, we're just virtually getting a top 10 pick for nothing, which is great.
Yeah, look forward to seeing him in the colours come 2024. Final question, Todd, it's at your feet. It comes from Matthew. How can we transition from a culture of celebrating effort?
Yeah, well, we don't want to be recognised for just getting close. There's no doubt. The players are really frustrated. There was a real emphasis last week around let's not stop talking about, we didn't win, but we were good for 2 quarters or 3 quarters. So, no, internally, we're not happy with where we're at with 2 wins. We want to be a great club and challenging for silverware. That's where we're going. All our decision making is going to be around doing that. We're not looking to get middle of the table. So whether it be list management, recruiting, and the way we're teaching our game plan, it's for the long-term future. So we've got to keep raising the bar, but we've got to still celebrate the small wins. And so just because we don't win each week, we're not going to bring the whip in and whip everyone, because that's no answer either. So we accept we need to win, and we want to win. It's a winning industry, as they say. But if you dig deeper, we need to be doing a lot of things right to get there, and we're trying to get all those things in place. But yeah, we want to win, and it's coming.
That wraps up our member Q&A here on nmfc.com.au with thanks to Mazda, to Brady, Rawlings, Todd, Viney and Brett Ratten. Thank you so much for your honesty and I guess the depth of thought you put into your responses then as well. Good luck for everything that's to come over the weeks and months ahead, both on and off the field.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks to all our members for submitting their questions as well, and we'll see you again soon on nmfc.com.au.